Welcome to the Nonfiction Writers, podcasting in a great way. I'm Ryan Aber, joined by Jason Kersey, and today a special guest, Jim Ross, JR. JR, how you doing today?
Doing great. Hope you guys are as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. Really looking forward to it. JR, you've been an OU fan for a long time. What's the mood right now for you as an OU football fan, and what do you feel from other fans after the loss last week to Kansas State?
Well, we all know that the OU fan base, by and large, is somewhat entitled and spoiled. So anytime there's a loss, it's as if someone lost, a pet in the family. So there's a grieving period. I'm winking at you somewhat. A grieving period, but you hear it's good for talk radio. It's good to for you guys. Gives you a lot of things that you can write about. But for me, I had a rough, perplexing night on Saturday night, and I wish that we had won the game, but that's just part of life. That in my 62 years, and at least 50 of it being an OU fan, the ups and downs I've had in my career, my health, sports fan wise, if you're lucky, you get to play another game. If you're lucky and you have a bad day today, you'll be blessed with another day tomorrow. So, I don't know. See, there's going to be some that have a hard time getting over it. And quite frankly, I think there are some fans that actually enjoy the consternation, that actually enjoy the conflict. And I know that there are radio personalities in this market who enjoy the conflict because it apparently helps their ratings.
Yeah, what you just said is so true, but I'm curious, as somebody, who's not only a big fan of the program, but you're pretty close to the program. I know you and Bob are friends. When people talk and you read things and you hear things that people say, I mean, do those things bother you as somebody who's personally close with his coaching staff?
Well, yeah, it sure does, because I look at those guys as an extended part of my family, and they have embraced me in that regard as well. We can't forget, and I'm not saying this trying to break my arm, patting myself on the back. I've got almost 1.2 million Twitter followers. I don't hide the fact that I'm a OU fan. Publicly, privately, on national television, on national radio, whether it be the Feinbaum Show or ESPN Radio or wherever it may be, Fox Radio, they know I'm an OU guy, and I'm proud of that. And a lot of them know that I think that Bob is the best football coach in America. And of course, this week, that would be debatable by some, but not me. I look at him as much more than just a football coach, and I consider him a great friend, and I know the kind of human being that he is. And maybe and if you're just going to cut down and you're as a fan, and it's only about winning and losing a game, and that's all it's about nothing else. We don't care if we have outlaws here. We don't care if we have the inmates run the asylum. We don't care what's going on in the dorms. We don't care what's going on outside the dorms. We just want to win football games. And if that's your only criteria to support your team, one, I feel sorry for you for your ignorance. And secondly, this is not the coach for you, because he's the kind of man that is going to represent the school. I've heard him talk to kids. I know the volunteer work he does, that he doesn't like to get publicity for. I think we're in good hands. I think we're in really good hands. And sometimes we fall in love with these players because of what we read, what you guys write, which I'm not blaming you. But, you do a good job. And you sell me that Samaj P. Rhyme is one of the greatest freshman running backs that Oklahoma's had. He's certainly in the argument of the top 5 or 6 or 8 freshman running backs that Oklahoma's had, and specifically in recent years, excluding Adrian Peterson, who I guess we're not supposed to talk about that now because of his issues. But so if Samaje doesn't gain 242 every game like he did at West Virginia, then what's wrong with Samaje? Oh, he's not being coached right, or the line's not blocking right. Or could it be that he's a teenager and he's a freshman and
right.
he's still learning his craft? So I think people kind of overreact, and it takes. Coach Switzer told me one time it takes a hell of a lot of luck to get to a national championship game, and then you got to be blessed with great players and even more luck to win it. So I don't know that. I think that it's a long shot for Oklahoma to be in the Final Four. Obviously, that's not. It doesn't take the immense member to figure that out. But I still think we can have a great year, and I still think that we have the ability with these coaches and these players to run the table. Whether we do or not is part of the adventure of going on the game. If you're a real fan, you sit on the wagon and you go over the bumps, you go over the smooth roads. Everything's there's a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different terrain that we're going to travel between now and December the 6th when we play Oklahoma State. So I'm excited about the next game because I think the next game will bring its own unique set of challenges with it.
Are you surprised that at the heat that not only Bob Stoops but some of the other coaches have taken, or do you just expect it after your experiences as an OU fan for, like you said, the last 50 or so years?
Well, it goes to the territory of any high-profile job. I used to get the same criticism when I would sign a wrestler that didn't pan out. I signed a class in 2002 that included Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton and John Cena and Dave Bautista. Well, that made me look like a genius because I signed 4 guys that were all WrestleMania main event guys. So I signed guys that all were first-team All-Americans in that world. But I've also signed some guys that didn't make it that made me look not quite so bright and somewhat more ordinary. But I think Bob realized it goes along with the territory, and any coach at any major university understands that it goes along with it. It's part of what you have to endure. But I think if you made a list of all the good things from jobs like OU and all the bad things, that the positive side of the ledger would far outweigh the negative. And so knowing Bob as I do, he's back at work and he's coaching like he always coaches, and they're trying to correct on-field mistakes. And by the way, I would suggest to you guys that every coach in America this week are trying to correct on-field mistakes because, to the best of my knowledge, not one team in America played a perfect game last week. There are issues to correct, and I think that's part of what coaching is, evaluating, processing the information, identifying a problem, and then quickly and efficiently coming up with what you perceive to be the best solution for that problem. And OU, over the years, has done a pretty good job of that since 1999. And if people that were around here in 99 remember what shape the program was in the late 90s and how we were perceived around the country as well, Oklahoma used to have a good football program back in the day. I remember that Switzer guy had a good program. And
yeah, he had some okay years, didn't he?
Yeah, he did all right. So, but Bob has resurrected this sleeping giant that was just, it wasn't the palace on the prairie in this coveted hallowed halls of Gaylord Memorial Stadium. It was a football program that used to be good that now was just really irrelevant in their own conference, much less the national scene. And that's changed immensely. So with those changes also come higher expectations. So, but for my money, if I'm an NFL guy, if I'm a college president or an AD, the qualities that Bob Stoops brings to the table cannot be replicated in mass in this profession. And I'm not saying, guys, he's the only good man, good family man, good role model, good football coach in America. But he's one of a small handful of guys that you would really be willing to turn your program over to get it back rolling.
You mentioned your Twitter following and social media. I wanted to ask you about that. You seem to have a good time on there, but obviously we know that there are some, we know even with our much smaller Twitter followings, that there are a lot of internet warriors out there who say things that are just ridiculous. I mean, how do you handle that? Do you just let that stuff roll off? Do you respond to those people? How do you handle that stuff?
Well, I've coined a name for them as close to what you said there. I call them keyboard warriors because they're very, very brave sitting on their, either on their phone or their iPad or whatever it may be, and those 140 characters can try to be very hurtful. You can do a couple of things. You can recognize them and give them an answer, which is probably not suggested, or you can give a response that makes them look even more stupid, and leave them tagged into your response so that the other thousands and over 1 million can see how dumb this person is, and let them pile on and let them see how it feels to be picked on or to point it out that, that was really a stupid thing to say. I started getting text messages on Saturday night about the Kansas State game because people know that I love the team, and I'm going to love the team whether we win, lose, or draw.
It's funny, JR, you mentioned these guys. My favorite thing that anyone's ever said to me was after the TCU game, they were so mad at me that they wanted to fight me in a charity boxing match. So I got a kick out of that.
Oh yeah, I've been threatened and called everything in the book because of being a fan, and then I've even had OU fans that jump on me because I don't hate Texas. I don't hate Oklahoma State. I don't hate when we lose a ball game. Do I consider Texas a rival? Absolutely. Do I want the Sooners to beat Texas? Of course. But am I going to hate a group of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who are living their dream, playing college football? That's ludicrous. I hate cancer. I hate war. I hate seeing kids that go hungry. There's a lot of things that I use. I'm very selective on use the word hate. I've even had local radio guys. They don't understand how I pull for Oklahoma State in every game that they played but one. Well, I don't know how you can do that. That hurts Oklahoma in recruiting. I mean, you want to say, that's why you're making about $30,000 a year. And living from check to check, because that's just stupidity. One guy refusing not to hate a sports team or a kid or a coach with a family, and saying, I'd rather just say I dislike Texas on the second Saturday in October. And after that game, unless it affects the standings in the Big 12, Texas is off my grid.
Yeah,
I don't spend any extra time with Texas. Oklahoma State, we live here. We all live in the state together, and I'm not going to be the guy that's going to say, well, I got buddies of mine that they just think I'm absolutely, as I would say in wrestling back in the day, goofier than a pet coon because I don't hate Oklahoma State. But when Bedlam comes around, whether it's in Stillwater or Norman, I'm dang sure going to be wearing my OU colors, and I'm going to be cheering as loudly as I can for the Sooners. But the hate thing annoys me. And so I do that same thing on Twitter. I had people on Twitter, your buddy Stoops can't be called Big Game Bob and blah, blah, blah. And, I don't recall anybody I don't think Bob gave himself that name.
Yeah.
It's not like pro wrestling where you say, okay, I think my name's going to be, Bruiser Bob Stoops. it's not that way. This is real life. This is reality. Not pro wrestling is fiction.
Yeah.
So who gave Big Game Bob that name? It was, sure as hell wasn't him.
Yeah.
So point being is that we've got a team that is imperfect, and we're always going to have teams that are imperfect. And but that to me is part of the adventure. I was telling you guys, or thinking about telling a story that, for years I lived in Connecticut when I was executive vice president of WWE, and I commuted to OU games. And it didn't matter if I commuted to Ames or I commuted to Manhattan. They're all-the-way games for me because I was living in Connecticut. So I did that for a long time, and if that doesn't mean I'm not loyal, I don't know what does, because it was expensive, and I went by myself, and luckily to Bob's credit and the athletic department's credit, they give me a credential so I could be on the sideline. So I wasn't sitting in the stands alone, wearing my black hat and doing a meet and greet with a bunch of wrestling fans. I don't mind doing that, but I kind of like to watch the game, So that's been a blessing for me, and it's it's a bucket list thing to be in that environment. And I have to watch myself because I get excited, and I'm like anybody else. It's when you're in the heat of battle and you're surrounded by passion and emotions and ups and downs and peaks and valleys, it's very hard sometimes to control your emotions, especially when you were a 20-year college football official and you see officiating that has gotten worse instead of better over the years. And the reason for that is not because they're not good people. It's because fewer and fewer guys are getting into high school officiating, learning their craft, getting better, and then getting some smaller college games, and then finally moving their way up to a Big 12 level. And that's why officiating's not good right now. It's simply because there's not enough good bodies out there that are getting started in high school officiating, which is at a dangerous level, to be honest with you. So,
go ahead.
Well, if you guys cover high school football, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Do you think that shortage in high school officiating, and obviously the consequences for it down the line, is that because of the attitudes that some fans have toward these officials? Is it just people not wanting to put up with the sometimes long hours and relatively little pay that offers at the entry level, or why do you think that is, that officiating numbers at the high school level in particular are struggling?
Well, I think those are very good points, and I think that you wonder how much the much maligned Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activity Association, how much time that they invest in recruiting officials, or young men or women that are of good health and athletic enough that they love the game and they want to still remain a part of it after their playing days are over. I never read about a seminar or are you interested in making extra money. One would think this: the pay is better now than it has ever been. Not to say that it isn't still substandard on the high school level. It should be more. But I think that the recruiting efforts, unless I'm missing something, and I may be, the PR effort of the secondary schools, which is, again, they've been in the paper a lot lately. They've been in the news, and not all for good things.
Right.
They obviously need to do some remodeling of their mansion. They need to fix some. They need to do some repair, but they can do that. But we don't want high school athletics to go away or to suffer in our state. They need to catch up with. They are like a minor version of the NCAA. When the NCAA tells you that a bagel is a snack and a bagel with cream cheese is a meal, you know you've got some issues. So I don't know that the OSSAA is that bad, but I got a feeling that there are some things that they need to go through their books, their rules, their procedures, and maybe, I don't want to say blow it up, but they certainly need to reevaluate and bring this thing into modern times. One of those things is recruiting more officials, whether it be in basketball or baseball or football. because the pay is better. And you'd think that people that want to get to stay healthier, exercise, make extra money, that this would be perfect for them, especially if they're a sports fan. So, but I think that the fact that there's that pool in high school where a lot of colleges look to elevate a guy and in their developmental areas and doing scrimmages and red-white games and things of that nature adversely affect the quality of the officials. I know from over the years that guys have gotten into, back in the Big 8 days, there were guys that got into officiating strictly because of who they knew and politics. And I don't know that it's that extreme now by any stretch. It may be completely gone, but I do think that's an issue, and I think it's showing up on the field of colleges. And then if you go back and look, if you continue to look for, upon further review, no pun intended, or maybe so, Sundays are not are can be a little bit embarrassing too as far as officiating is concerned. Anytime you have multiple huddles and meetings with officials on the field during a game, there's a problem. Mm-hmm. So I do think officiating is tough. So, but nonetheless, it's to me, the football season is an adventure. I do a lot of different projects during the year, but during the football season, I turn down appearances, whether it be, I had a chance to do the Montreal Comedy Festival until do my one-man show, and I didn't take the date because I would have missed an OU game, and my agent says, well, what game is it? And I said, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what game it is. If it's at Louisiana Tech first, or it's at Tulsa in the rain, or wherever, I'm going the game.
Yeah.
If I'm not ill or there's just something I can't control, I'm going to the OU game because I'm loyal, and that's a trait I've always. My father and my mother taught me to be loyal, and I'm loyal to my team to a fault. I get it, and so every year I hold my breath because my wife and our anniversary is October the 12th. Well, October the 12th sometimes falls on a Saturday, and sometimes it's OU Texas.
Yeah.
and I love her with all my heart, but I haven't missed an OU Texas game in decades.
The question is, what were you thinking getting married in October?
Which time? We might have should have picked a different date, but it seemed like the right thing to do at the time,
Yeah.
and I don't have any regrets on that whatsoever. That's been a blessing for me.
JR, you mentioned your other projects, and I definitely wanted to ask you about that. You've got your hand in so many different things now between your barbecue, you're doing some MMA announcing, you're doing writing for Fox Sports, and then obviously you've got your podcast, which has just been an enormous success. How do you make time for all that stuff?
Well, I've always been, I multitask a lot when I was in the wrestling business because you found that the infrastructure in a lot of offices were small and you had to wear multiple hats. And so I try to practice good time management skills. Everything that I do, I enjoy doing, so none of it feels like I have to go to work or I have to go write this story or I have to go to record this podcast. My podcast is on podcast1.com, or you can subscribe for free at iTunes. It's called The Ross Report, and it is it's kind of wrestling oriented, but it's not all about wrestling. And I've had a lot of people on, like Ronda Rousey and Michelle Beadle of ESPN and Robert Flores of ESPN, to name a few, that are not in the wrestling business, but they're fans. So we talk about their fandom. We talk about other sports-related things. But it's generally about sports, football included, and mostly food and wrestling. It's kind of it's somewhat ubiquitous in the topics we talk about. But I'm doing, it's averaging about 500,000 downloads a week and growing. We've had over 1 million downloads in a week before, so it's doing really well. Very, very happy with that. And it's free. That's the great thing about it. It's kind of like, It's like you guys do. It's audio on demand. You listen to it when you want to, and it's a specialized area, and so it's been good. I got a piece up right now on Fox with, as a matter of fact, one of the guys I'm interviewing that's going to drop tonight. Tonight's Tuesday, right? As we record this. At 9 o'clock on Tuesday nights, a new episode drops, and the guy I'm talking with is one of the, he's the number one radio personality in Pittsburgh. He's kind of the Jim Traver of Pittsburgh. He's very outspoken, very verbose, very opinionated, but he writes, and he's got an afternoon drive show on a big station there, and he's also a former color analyst for WCW back in the day when they were up and running. And so we talk Steelers, we talk Penguins, we talk Pittsburgh stuff because my wife's from Pittsburgh. We talk wrestling, we talk the NFL. It's like I always wanted to do this thing where it was like my guests and I are driving on a road trip, and the audience is in the back seat listening to the conversation. That's kind of the theory on that. So I'm doing that. At FoxSports.com this week is the WWE's got a Hell in the Cell big pay-per-view event on Sunday in Dallas, and I wrote a story this week about the most memorable Hell in a Cell, maybe the most memorable match ever, that people still take my sound bites from 16 years later and put them to current things online. So I got a story about that, going through hell with The Undertaker and Mankind. But I do it a little bit differently. You know, I admit and go into the fact I don't try to zoom you that wrestling's real. It's showbiz. But we talk to the guys and get their feelings on those moments. And so I got that rolling. And then my one-man shows will start back up in January. And those are basically, 20, 30 minutes of stand-ups and trying to tell some funny stories. Like anybody else that is brave enough or crazy enough to delve into humor. Sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not, and sometimes you hear crickets, and that's not very funny. So then we do Q&As with that audience, and that's really the fun part of it because they have just an amazing array of questions that we're doing. And I'm working on my my autobiography. I have my writing partner is a former investigative reporter in Houston who has now become a lawyer, and he comes up and we stay at the Sooner Legends Inn, or he does, for 4 or 5 days at a crack, and we love it there. We've been staying in the Barry Switzer suite, which is phenomenal, and it's kind of cool. My old friend, the late Dr. Destiny Williams, is in one of those pictures on the wall, which makes it even more. I thought that was kind of fate, so we've been using the Barry Switzer suite at Doug Kennan Sooner Legends Inn and Suites, and we're writing my after 40 years in wrestling, which I thought would be like a summer job. We're writing an autobiography, and we've actually organized it to where we're writing two. We're not writing two at once. We're getting enough material for two as we're going forward, and so that's kind of overdue, and I'm having fun doing that, and so that's another project that we hope to have done by the summer of 2015. But I'm going to probably do more boxing for Fox, and Oscar De La Hoya's company, and the MMA world is kind of opening up now. There's a lot of groups that are doing pay-per-views and doing bigger televised events that are not UFC or Affliction. So I'm having fun doing what I do, but those Saturdays are clean. I'm not working on Saturday. I'm going to watch Bob Stoops and his football team play, win, lose, or draw. I'm standing solidly behind my program and my team, and enjoying every minute of it. And then we roll into. I became a huge fan of my wife as well, of the Sooner women's basketball team, because I liked it, and the great hire. Lon Kruger was a great hire, but Sherry Cole is a gem. She's just amazing, and she's had a lot of hard luck with the injuries. I think they're going to have a much more competitive year, and they're just fun to watch play. They're fun to watch play because they play for the purity of the game. it's less of an individual game, less showboating with the women's basketball games, which gets very little publicity in the market. I get it, but hey, the same thing could be said about about Mark Cody's wrestling. I live 3 miles from the field house, and there's some days I don't even know they're even having a duel. So, but it's fun, man. Here's the deal: if your guy's lucky enough, like you guys, should be living your dream. If you wanted to be a sports writer as a kid, so it should be that going to work doesn't seem like you're going to work. Going to work is, or what you do for a living is fun. And so when I got to the stage of the game where I left WWE, I wanted to do things that I had missed doing because I couldn't do because of time or contractual issues. So I do things that are fun, and so that's where everybody should try to get. And I got there a little late, but I'm going to make the most of it while I'm here.
Definitely. I know I grew up from the time I was in middle school, wanted to be a sports writer and reading Barry Trammell and John Rhodey and the Patriots of the Oklahoma. And I know Jason grew up just down the road, and I'm sure had a similar experience.
Well, I wanted to be an NFL player, but it was pretty clear by about 7th grade that wasn't going to happen. So
genetics sometimes has a way of, I would have loved to have been a college football player, but I got into fishing. I went to Major League Umpire School in 1976. So when I got out of Major League Umpire School, there was such a shortage of umpires that my very first year out of umpire school, my first year as an umpire, I umped more games in the Southwest Conference then, I'm dating myself, and the Big Eight than I did in high school. There was that, and so there's been a dearth, this void in officiating that is, I think somewhere along the way will make a great story. But it's amazing to me that more people aren't. I would love to talk to a group of potential football officials and tell them how much fun they're going to have. And you have to take a little bit of. Is it stressful sometimes? Oh yeah, it's stressful. But a lot of things in life are stressful. It's just a matter of how you deal with it, and it's not like it's impossible. Stress to me would be that both pilots passing out in an airplane and them asking if anybody wants to come up and try to fly the plane and land us. That'd be stress, but calling pass interference on a close call, on a bang-bang call, is not as stressful as a lot of things that people do in their everyday life. So, but I had a great time. I got to stay in the game, and not as an athlete and not as a coach, but as an official. And I officiated year-round, and I loved it. And I think a lot of guys would feel the same way if it was sold to them in that regard. But again, that's the OSSAA's responsibility, not ours. But we could at least, I certainly would endorse some recruiting and making an active effort in getting more people involved and trying to take a lot of the politics and the old dog, the good old boy mentality out of it, because there's a lot of good old boy mentality in all officiating. I think it's one of the big, someday somebody is going to write a story about it, and you're going to find out, you're going to be shocked at how many sons-in-law or how many cousins or neighbors or insurance men or your banker are actually are football officials or basketball officials. And certainly Title IX. I watch the OU women's play, and I'm as a season ticket holder, and I understand the game to some degree, I think, and I know that there are a lot of people officiating in those Big 12 women's basketball games that have no more business than I would trying to go out to Remington Park and get a job as a jockey. It's just not. I need to drop about 120 until that time comes. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But there are people on the court because of government rules and regulations, which I'm not against equality, but everybody still should be good at what they do, not just because of their gender or their ethnicity. You should be good at what you do. That's all. Simple as that. So it means that some of them just need more time in high school or more time in JUCO before they get to a TV game on the big in the Big 12 then that's why if you go back and look, you guys can do the same thing. Go back and look at that cluster of officials that always work the Final Four men's basketball tournament, from the semis or before the semis on, the Elite Eight or the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Same names. Okay, what do they do for a living? Who do they know? You know, why are they there and some younger guy not there? And I'm telling you, someday you watch an NFL game and look at the box score like I do, and look at the names on the of some of these guys, and find out where what their heritage is. It will be one of the more eye-opening. It's something that like real sports should do, or whatever. So. It's an interesting topic that we veered off
Absolutely.
on.
We could talk about that all day. But
and by the way, next week I just got a text from somebody sent me a text from ESPN that next week the Boz 30 for 30 debuts, and I know that from what I was told, I made the edit.
Oh yeah.
So I'm happy to be part of that, and.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. As somebody who grew up in that era here in Oklahoma, it'll be interesting to see the 30 for 30 treatment on Brian Bosworth.
Yeah, I think they have very high expectations for it, and it's got I don't know all the names, but I saw them on a list at one point. But it's a who's who. It's really, really good. I think Barry Trammell's in it, but Barry Trammell's he's a media mogul now. He's in everything.
Oh yeah, he's everywhere. But JR, we really appreciate you joining us. Quick plugs. Check him out on Twitter at JR's BBQ, at JR's Barbecue. JR, where can people find the sauces and other barbecue products?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. We are right now we're growing. It's all over Europe and UK and Ireland, which probably doesn't affect a lot of folks there. But here, it's in the 3 Norman Homeland stores, all our products. We make 2 barbecue sauces, a chipotle ketchup, which is sweet and smoky, and JR's Main Event mustard, which is a jalapeno honey mustard. It's really good, 1 gram of sugar. We make a all-purpose seasoning, which you can use as a dry rub. So the 3 Norman Homeland stores and all 8 metro area Crest stores. And this Saturday, from noon until 3, I'll be giving away free food and meeting fans and signing pictures, and just a fun day from noon until 3 at the Crest store in Edmond. That's this Saturday. OU happens to be off that week, and how coincidental that works out. So I got myself something to do, noon to 3, Edmond Crest. Come on out, free food, say hi, talk a little football. And even if you're not an OU fan, or if you are an OU fan and you want to debate any of my points, well, we can do it as long as we're nonviolent.
Absolutely. Well, JR, we really appreciate it. And also got to give a quick plug for the podcast, the Ross Report, Tuesday night, right?
Tuesday nights
with Mark Madden.
Tuesday nights at 8 Central on podcast1.com and iTunes. This week's guest is the verbose Mark Madden. Think of him as the lovable, cranky, but provocative and entertaining Jim Traver of Pittsburgh. And he is very, very outspoken. And I've already recorded this podcast. It's dynamite. It's really, really entertaining. It's funny to listen to. He's got a great sense of humor, and we really have some fun with it. So, but I have a new podcast that drops every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Oklahoma time, and it's free. Just download it on Podcast One or go to iTunes and subscribe, and you won't miss a show.
All right. Well, sounds good, JR. Once again, we really appreciate you joining us. Had a blast, and hope to do it again sometime soon.
Okay, fellas. Thanks a lot. Keep up the good work. Proud of both of you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
JR.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Jim Ross. Again, follow him on Twitter at JRsBBQ. Follow us at RYAber, at Jason Kersey, and check us out every day at newsok.com and every morning in the Oklahoman for the best OU coverage anywhere.